Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to this episode of Spreadsheet Gaming. In this episode, we're going to take everything that we've put together and we're going to go ahead and do some Dungeon Master prep. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to generate some treasure for the dungeon that I have coming up. I'm going to make us a handful of hirelings that will be available at the tavern if she wants to go looking for them. We are obviously going to add some monsters. We can go ahead and add it to our table here, but we're also going to go ahead and roll up for them on our HP calculator over here. We're going to track all of the experience that comes up for that. That will come up here in the HP calculator, as well as whatever shows up in the treasure table. We'll make some random scrolls, and we will go ahead and make a random encounter table specifically for the dungeon that we're going to go into. And at the end of all this, we're going to go ahead and put it into a document that makes it easy for us to reference when we get to the table. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. First thing I want to do is let's just go ahead and add a handful of monsters that we're going to run into for this particular adventure. Let's see. In my game, I'm going to send the party into a book. We're going to do this page master style. And so in this book, they're going to go back and they're probably going to deal with some penguin folk. And so with that, I need some natural enemies for penguins. Harpies are possibilities. I know that's not actually, they're eagle bodies, and I know giant birds tend to be penguin hunters, so maybe we could use the harpies. Why not? And what else would we see where penguins would live? Some kind of ice-themed monsters. Maybe we could have like a mutant penguin owlbear, kind of like Bane or something like that. So I'm going to go ahead and add Bane. Whoa there, Rockstar. No, we don't want to change any of that. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and add a handful of monsters off camera. I'll be right back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Alright, so I went ahead and added a frost troll and a frost giant. I know this just says troll. We're going to imagine that it is a frost troll. We're going to reskin it for our game to be a frost troll. And then we also have our direwolf over here. So we are good to go on that front. Next step I want to go ahead and do is add some treasure to this ice citadel. Let's actually, first things first, let's take a look at the monsters that we're adding. So let's go into our combat tracker. Let's wipe all these bad boys out because we don't need them anymore. And let's get trolls. Let's get, let's just say 2 of them for now. And then, what did we say? We were going to bring a frost giant. That's going to be our boss, because that seems like a pretty tough encounter. So I'm just going to go ahead and bring one of those. We're also bringing some harpies, and I think we'll end up bringing at least that many. Obviously, we can roll up more if we need to later, but we do have our enemies there. So we've got our trolls, we've got our harpies, we've got our frost giant. What else do we have? Direwolf. Yeah, let's say 4 of those bad boys. Yeah, sure. The chance may be that they run into yeah, let's just say maybe 3 wyverns eventually. And oh right, the owlbears, of course. Let's get a handful of those guys. And then last but not least, maybe there's a chance they'll run into a white dragon or 2. All right. So we've got all of our monsters. Let's go ahead and take a look at the HP calculator. It did go ahead and do all the calculations for us already. So let me grab all those. I go back into our combat tracker. Go ahead and paste all those. We've got our HP ready to go for all of our encounters now. Yep, and our handy dandy conditional formatting is still working, so we're good to go on that front as well. All right. So, we've got our monsters all ready to go here. I see we've got some D treasures, we've got C treasures, E treasures, more C, and a couple of H's. So let's go ahead and bring up our treasure tracker, or our treasure generator, I should say. And what did we say? We said we were going to have C, D. I know H was on there. Oh, we didn't add H yet. Well, I guess we'll have to do that at some point. E. And then, because we don't have the H one yet, let's go ahead and grab that. All right. Now we have all the different hordes that we're going to run into for this particular adventure. I think in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and roll it once. I could obviously come back and roll this again if I decide that the players run into an encounter. But I see here that we have 1d4 gems that we need to roll up. We have 1d8 times 1,000 copper. We have a d8 of gems that we need to roll up. We have a d4 of electrum, a d8 of gold, a d100 of 1,000 silver, a d4 of 10,000, and a d100 of gems. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and roll all of this up off camera. I'll see you guys in just a bit. Oh, and one last thing to make it easy on myself, I'm going to filter out the nose. And, shucks. Okay. Well, unfortunately, it did re-roll, it looks like, but now that I think about it, I think this is everything that we went through. So I'm going to ignore that it was present over here, and I'm just going to go ahead and take that. But basically, my point here is that we've got two filters going on at the same time. We are filtering both the treasure type and if, it's present or not. So this makes it easy for me to quickly get through what treasures I need to roll. This makes it a lot more digestible as I'm going to go through these next, what is this? Looks like it's 8. Yeah, these next 8 treasure rolls. So like I said, I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera. But I did want to show you guys one of the nice things about sheets and why we can jump in here and do this. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. So off camera, I went on over to our stat generator table. I copied this dice roller that we made on that, and I brought it on over here to the random treasure table so that I could go ahead and get all the rolling done for these different things. You'll see I've got 2 gems, 5,000 copper, 4 gems, so on and so forth. So I did go ahead and complete all the rolling for that. It took me about 2 or 3 minutes, so hopefully this sort of thing will save you guys a lot of time. You won't have to go through the manual rolling if this is something that you guys do. I'm sure a lot of you guys have your own system at this point where you don't have to jump through these hoops, but just keep that in mind. We have a nice, easy generator for us, so we've got all of our treasure here. I can go ahead and add it to... So realistically looking at it, the only things I might need to add are going to be the gems to our market index, so I'm going to leave that alone for now, but I think for the time being, this treasure is good where it's at. So we can go ahead and move on to the next part. Let's generate us some hirelings. Now I could do this randomly. I think thinking about kind of the geography, or yeah, we'll call it the geography of where my town is, the locals, all that sort of thing. We're not going to have any elves there. There might, yeah, we'll go ahead and throw in a dwarf. Maybe a dwarf shows up. We'll say a couple of clerics. We'll say a magic user, a couple of fighters, and a thief. And let's stretch these out. Okay, great. So we've got the random stats for the folks that are going to show up today. So let me just go ahead and actually, let's copy that. And let's make a new table called the Tavern Patrons. Sure, why not? And then I'm going to hit Control Shift and V and bring in that list of hirelings that we generated. Depending on who our players want to contract and add to the team, we can go ahead and add this over to our roster as needed. But for the purposes of generating some random hirelings that they'll run into the tavern, there we go. Let's take a look at the XP now that I think about it. Looking at the combat tracker, we do have about 8,000 experience, and looking at it, it should be all nice and totaled up there. We shouldn't need to worry about any cleaning or anything like that with the monsters that we selected, so that's good. The other thing that we'll need to think about is the treasure. The treasure that we generated, at least in the type of game that we're playing, does add experience, so we'll have to keep in mind what treasures the players actually get their hands onto, but that should be simple enough to kind of keep a decent track of. All right, next up is scrolls. Well, we didn't actually randomly roll any scrolls for our treasure, but I think for the purposes of GM Fiat, I'm going to go ahead and generate a handful. Let's say a second level magic user spell. Okay. Oops. Oh, no. Okay, we need to... All right, well, too bad. They're getting knocked now. So what I needed to do here, because remember, guys, this is part of a formula. What I need to do here is Control Shift and V. Same thing over here. Control C, Control Shift and V. And let's say that they get a third level cleric, and it looks like they got Remove Curse. So those are the scrolls that they're going to find at some point in this particular adventure. Next thing I want to do is actually make up a random monster table. And let's think about this. So we have our harpies. I think that's a relatively easy monster to fight against. Let's bring some black bears and we'll paint them. Yeah, we'll just say they're black bears. That's fine. They might run into black bears. We'll paint them as polar bears. That's what we'll do. I know there's a polar bear monster, but we will just go ahead and paint these black bears as polar bear monsters. Alright, and let's see. What's another monster? Definitely bring some owl bears randomly. Yeah, okay. Sure, some snow crabs somehow. And then last but not least, they could potentially run into some direwolves. We'll just leave the calculations there. Let me go ahead and delete those. We'll say 1 to 6. We'll say 7 to 10. We'll say 11 through 13, 14 through 18, and 19 through 20. All right, so we've got our percentages fully calculated here. We are good to go. This all adds up to 100%. So we've got our random monster table good to go. Last but not least, we could add those gems, to our market index, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. I think we'll just go ahead and add it as they collect it throughout the adventure. I'll just have to figure out exactly where to spread that stuff. So realistically, only thing left to add at this point is to go into our random encounter table. I'm going to go ahead and copy all this information. And just for the purposes of it, we'll do new.docs, or no, I think it's actually docs.new. That's going to open up a brand spanking new Google Doc for me. And then I'm just going to go ahead and, yeah, sure, let's go ahead and just paste that. And we're good to go there. So I've got my random monster table here if I need it. I've got all of our monsters in the tracker if I need it. We've got our treasure ready to go over here, which just for the sake of it, let's go ahead and plug it in over here as well. And then we also have who's showing up at the tavern tonight. Let's go ahead and add those to a doc. Why not? And alrighty, I guess last but not least, we can go ahead and just add all of the monster stats. So let's do that. And now that we've got that all copied, let's go ahead and paste it down here. And that, ladies and gentlemen, collects all the monsters that we need. All right, folks. Well, that is going to do it for this prep episode of Spreadsheet Gaming. I think at this point, we're pretty much, I don't want to say finished with the sheet, but I think this is all the work we have to do on it now. I think in our next episode, we are going to go ahead and move on to a different system. I'm thinking D100 Dungeon for those folks who like to play solo games. But yeah, like I said, that's going to go ahead and do it for this episode, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.